I'm Erika Chong Shuch. I'm really happy that I've been able to work through the Global Urban Humanities Initiative for some years, and really grateful for all of the interactions that I've had with Susan and the amazing like community that she pulls together. Susan always just draws together so many brilliant people that I feel like have really shifted the way that I think about my practice, which is performance. So I come to you all as a performance maker. I work these days primarily with these lovely people, Ryan Takata and Rowena Ritchie, and we have a performance collective called For You. And the work that we're doing through Future Histories is building on our professional performance practices that we've been developing over the past 5 years or so. So For You functions as a collective. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about our work together, and we're driven by two primary tenets. Just there's only two things that we think about all of the time. One is to think about performance making as a way to bring groups of diverse strangers together, right? To create and facilitate these like intimate, awkward encounters between strangers. And we think about performance making as gift giving. So those two things really are the guideposts that we are chasing. So gifts. What do we mean? What do we mean by a performance gift? We think about anything that's created for a specific person or a specific group of people, right? And what does it feel like in your bodies to just imagine what it feels like to create something that is in the spirit of generosity, right? To create something that's intended to be an offering to another human. Like that feels really different in my body like than other like sometimes I think about I'm going to make a piece of performance that's going to in which I'm going to work through my own issues, right? That feels like one thing, like using performance as a way to kind of like deal with my own shit feels really different than using performance as an opportunity to like reach out and come to know another person. So you know, we think a lot about how we give better gifts sometimes when we know someone, right? Like, and so a lot of our work is around getting to know the people that we're making for. So Ryan will speak later about how that all sits kind of within the realm of creative ethnography, or sometimes we call it like deep hanging out. So Ryan will speak to that. But the work that we're doing is inspired by this idea of like coming to know another person and creating in this spirit of generosity. So the work looks like a bunch of different things. Sometimes it's like a big theater show. Sometimes it's a group of 12 people. Sometimes it's an intimate exchange between two people. At the start of the pandemic, we started a project called Artists and Elders, in which we bring individual artists together with individual elders for some sort of creative exchange. We were very aware that elders were experiencing a pretty profound, their experiences of isolation were profound. And I think artists also felt a pretty profound sense of isolation, being separated from our communities. I think especially as theater artists who like work, you know, on top of each other and breathing on each other and rolling around on each other. Like there was that shared sense of isolation. And so we launched this project called Artists and Elders, which is informing the class that we are offering. And the class is called Performing in Place, Experimental Ethnography, Spatial History, and Creative Mutual Aid. So it's a mouthful, but we hope to kind of break that up with you all a little bit. So Rowena has had a long history of working with elder folks. I wonder if Rowena can just talk a little bit about like your experience of, or your understanding of how elders have been affected by the pandemic, and like how our project, I don't know, like moves into the elders' lives that we've been working with.
Yeah, totally. It's great to see all of you. Thanks for being here, and Susan, so much for the invitation. I'm excited to expand on Artists and Elders, where we, as Erika said, like saw that, you know, elders are part of this high risk group for the infection and needed to maybe isolate to keep themselves protected. But once we got sort of the ball rolling and started making some contact, we learned a lot of elders felt like the pandemic wasn't really that different from what they were used to in terms of this kind of feeling a little bit invisible in society, maybe a little bit cut off from their social support. Maybe they've outlived some of their social support, or they're struggling with clinical isolation or loneliness. Or, the pandemic, for a lot of us, video conferencing is a great way to connect, but some elders don't have that digital capacity or bandwidth or interest, tech know-how. So, so as Erika mentioned, I've spent many years teaching movement practices to older people as a way to reduce the risk of physical decline. And that led me to a fellowship at UCSF through the Memory and Aging Center there. There's a institute called the Global Brain Health Institute, and I really learned at the institute that loneliness and social isolation are risk factors for physical and cognitive decline. That when we make social engagement and social contact with people who struggle with isolation, they have better health outcomes, and we reduce our own ageism and our own stigma around ageism. So we actually benefit. I think there's a statistic about adding years to our own lives when we confront our own ageism. So there is this two-way reciprocal benefit. And I'll just dovetail into this idea of creative mutual aid. So as Erika mentioned, we have this artist resource, a lot of energy, a lot of creativity to bring to the table. Artists, I think, were looking for ways to help. And we had this elder need. Once we started making some of those connections, we realized there was so much more to engaging with an elder. There was an incredible lived experience that we were excited and eager to learn from, to hear about the history. And when we say creative mutual aid, we're just talking about that reciprocal engagement, how much we felt like we were benefiting and learning at the same time that we enjoyed showing up with our skills and expertise and giving. And oftentimes, it ended up being more of a collaboration than a gift for. It was like a gift with, where the elder and the artist ended up pairing their energy towards a gift that suited both of their needs. So that was a really rich lesson. And I think this class is trying to push those creative boundaries, or push our own creativity as artists. And I think the elders will have their creativity stimulated and pushed as well.
Yeah, just to say, like, what we're doing with the class, just before I pass it to Ryan, is building on all of the things that we've told you, we want to understand the history of South Berkeley by connecting with the elders who have been part of this community for a very long time, right? So working with these ideas of mutual aid, working with these ideas of creating performances as an opportunity for strangers to come together in the spirit of gift giving. How do we understand the history, the complicated history of South Berkeley, by getting to know these individual elders, right? And connecting with community groups that are going to help us identify those elders. So that is the root of what the class is. Ryan, I wonder if you can just speak a little bit about what we mean by ethnography. Like speak on creative ethnography. What is it? How do we do it? And how
Awesome.
do you think that we're going to be doing it in the class?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like one of those words where you look at it and you're like, oh God, I don't know if I want to do ethnography. We use it because we're excited by the impulse of getting to know people. And instead of trying to describe them in any kind of official, formal, totalizing way, the creative aspect of that is that we get to know people, we gather a lot of information, we take our notes really seriously because there's stuff that we sort of go back to and we call them, our field notes. But when we're looking at them as creative prompts. We're saying, what can we do with this information to create a really awesome experience that this person might enjoy, and in this case, this elder might enjoy, that would reflect them in a certain way without it necessarily being portrait or some attempt to like perfectly capture them within a kind of realist aesthetic frame or something. Like it really can be quite broad. So, if we're hanging out And I'm picking up that you like really soft things. I'm looking around the room and I see like a bunch of teddy bears and like really soft blankets, and the lighting is really soft. I'm gonna work with softness. I'm gonna like, I know that the thing that I want to create is gonna have a soft quality to it, maybe soft materials, soft foods, soft jazz. Like we'll start to play with this way in the studio and then come back. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's the kind of risk of making a really thoughtful gift. And so that's really what we mean by creative ethnography, is getting to know people, taking that information and then transforming it into a really unique, bespoke, creative kind of response. And so that's, yeah, we're excited. And we always discover new approaches to that when we're working together. And we're excited to discover how it is that you get to know people and to really shape that, right? And like collectively as a group of people, discover how it is that we can listen, like radically listen to those things that are often unheard, you know, that go unsaid, or maybe things that aren't necessarily about speech, but our environment or attitude or gesture or whatever it might be, and see what we can do with that creatively.
And what we want to do creatively in the context of this class is create something that we're calling an ephemeral monument. So we want to create a collection of ephemeral monuments. So in this time where we're all questioning who and what gets monumentalized, we're wondering what is it like to create these small gestures, these small little performances that celebrate and honor a specific elder. I want to clarify that the class is going to be happening online, and that although we are looking at South Berkeley, we're looking at it because we are connected to South Berkeley because the university is in South Berkeley, but that these methods can be utilized to understand any city, right? So we're using this experience of working with elders in this community, and in hopes that, that this kind of work can be replicated in other places. I'm going to skip our examples just for time on what we mean by ephemeral monument. We would love to talk to you more about all of these ideas we have in terms of the things that we're going to want to create, including an ephemeral monument for Miss Shih Tzu. Is that her name, Ryan?
Shimizu.
Okay, sorry. And Mr. Charles. There's we have more to say on that, but for the sake of time, I will stop there. I do want to say one more thing, that we see our teaching as an extension of our creative work. And when we come to the classroom, we are really looking to build a collaborative, creative community, and we engage students as collaborators. And so, we hope that we're excited to, one of my favorite things about working within Susan's programs within Future Histories and Global Urban Humanities is that folks are coming to the table with such a different body of experiences, and that all of those experiences inform a really rich collaborative project. So although we come from the field of performance, we are interested in working and building a community of collaborators across disciplines.